how vulnerable are you when you're talking to your employees? No, don't. Just give me a chance here. I am so moved by a book that I recently read, and I want you to really listen to what my guest has to say today, because he has got one of the most provocative and one of the most thought-provoking approaches to human resources. And one of the conditions of human resources and challenges that you are facing as a business owner, as a representative of HR, even as a manager or a director, you want to hear what my guest has to say today. And that's Robert Glazer, the author of Rethinking the 2-Week Notice. Robert, I am so excited. I am honored that you made time for us today.
Thank you.
Rethinking the 2-Week Notice. This should have been common sense.
We've changed a lot of things about the workplace, and as the workplace has changed and the world has changed, but for some reason this one is just stuck around, and it really doesn't serve anyone. And I think I think people, the sooner they realize that, or maybe some of them realize it, but like, what is the alternative? And so I thought I'd put forward an actual alternative so that maybe some people would look at this a different way.
Well, it's about time we all start looking at it a different way. In fact, I was talking to a leadership coach who is also working with one of my clients, and I made the comment of, why are we waiting for a 2-week notice? And he looked at me and he goes, exactly. I agree. I said, then good, because I've got a book for you. You were the CEO of Accelerated Partners, and you had a team that actually you applied this whole theory. So please explain your concept here.
Yeah, we were growing the company. We wanted a strong culture. We had won a lot of workplace awards, but when we came to people leaving, we were no different than anyone else. People would give 2 weeks notice. You'd find out their doctor's appointment weren't their doctor's appointments. And I sort of looked around and seemed like, how do we change this? This doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. I was inspired by Patty McCord's work at Netflix. Netflix was having honest conversations with people, and they were also able to give them 6-month severance and says, this is not a great choice, and, soften the blow. We didn't have money to do that. And so when we were presented with an opportunity of someone who was struggling, and do we do another performance improvement plan, we decided to test this concept of like, hey, look, seems like you want to do something else. We're going to need to hire a replacement. How about we plan on a transition, and you work here for a couple months and we find your replacement and you can interview. And there were some struggles with it and we didn't get it right. But overall, we were like, oh, this produced a pretty good outcome. Like, what if we could turn this into the basis? And that sort of led us to building our program. We had our own name. I sort of genericized it as an open transition program. But it's basically a way, whether it's employee or employer-led, for it not to be sort of a net zero of either I'm leaving, you're fired, and can we have a period here where this person can move on and we can support them and we can help them. We also recognize that, something different needs to be done here as well. And it's hard for people to do that, knowing that it's not hard, but it changes this paradigm of, we have people working at our company that we know are leaving, and that's fine. It's kind of like an athlete, finishing out their contract, and they're going to sign elsewhere, but they show up and they play the games, and they don't quit. So there were a bunch of different analogies that we thought of.
Well, I this forces business owners or leaders to completely drop down their guard a little bit. I love the clause, the phrase that you put in here. The best learning occurs when we get out of our own comfort zones. And your book gives a reader all the ideas and all the tools to actually get engaged with an employee and actually be a part of the process.
Yeah, look, they're not going to work at your company forever. The left side of our brain knows that, and the right side acts shocked and like it's huge betrayal when they leave. And so if we come back to sort of what we know intellectually and we take some of the emotion out of it, again, there are a lot better outcomes we can do. Say, look, people aren't going to work here forever, so let's make it okay to leave. Let's not celebrate leaving. people throw I don't think you want to celebrate, leaving in that way, but just understand it's part of the process and make a different way for it to happen. And that includes psychological safety, open communication, this commitment to mutual respect, and also mutually beneficial outcomes, which are sort of the 4 foundations of the program.
Well, the viewers and listeners have heard me say a million times, start with the why. I think Simon hit it just dead on when he said, look, people want to understand what's going on, but employers need to start with the why as well. They need to understand what's going on in their company and why somebody isn't happy or they're looking elsewhere.
Exactly. There's a lot of symptoms that have different root causes, right? So if you're disengaged and not doing well, Pandy, at your work, I could put you on a performance improvement plan. Or I could sit down and have a discussion. Say, hey, like what's going on? Like really? And you say, you know what? I lost my childcare and I've been really stressed and working these hours. That could be one thing. Or 2, you're really upset because you got passed over for a raise and 4 other people have it. Or either the third is like, you really don't want to be doing this, anymore. All of those may manifest in underperformance, but they're fundamentally different roots and they have different solutions. And the first one, I need to work with you, and it's time for you to change your schedule or understand that's something you need to fix. And that if you can fix that problem, your performance will probably be fine. In the second one, I might be like, you know what? We were wrong. Like, we should have given you a raise or a promotion a long time ago. And all these people are coming in above you. And we think that's right. And we fix that. The third one, I can't fix. You don't want to do this anymore, right? That's where we get into this. Hey, well, what does it look like for you to kind of start a transition and move on? Because we need someone who wants to do sales. And, you're struggling in sales and you don't want to be in sales. So obviously, like, not a great idea for us to leave you in sales. So maybe that's looking internally or maybe that's looking externally. But I always say, like, the performance improvement plan is the equivalent of a Tylenol. The Tylenol stops the headache, but first person may have a headache because they're gluten intolerant. The second person may have a headache because they're dehydrated. The third person may have a headache because they have a brain tumor, right? The Tylenol is not solving the core problem. It's sort of alleviating the symptom.
And it all comes down to communication.
Yeah,
but
like most things in life.
But I also love the fact that you keep reminding these leaders, you tuck and hide your daggone ego. You don't have all the answers. You're not perfect. Yes.
Look, there are companies where if you tell them you want to go back to school, and I have a terrible book I'm writing up, there's narrative. Like, you tell them you want to go back to school, and let's say it's January. I applied for my MBA. I'm going to go back in June. Like, any person, you're like, great. Like, why don't you wrap up in May? There's some companies, they'd be like, as soon as you know that, you have to leave. Like, why? Like, the person's going back to business school. Like, it's not, again, like, why? I don't get that. Right. And it is a lot about ego, and people like to control the situation, and they like to think that people will never leave. I got news for you. Go look at the best places to work list. The average tenure is probably 2.5 years. So people leave, even the best companies. So let's stop pretending that's not going to happen, and start turning it into productive alumni, who go out as net promoters for our business and help us in the world.
I love the way that you added that, because I don't know of what company doesn't fear those bad reviews on Glassdoor, or what damage occurs to their brand when people start talking about them. Oh, you don't want to work there. They're horrible to work for.
And it goes both ways, right? When the person leaves on a 2 weeks notice, they don't realize that people back channel reference, and they're going to reach out to that person in 2 years, and they're going to go, oh, Pandy, she ended really poorly, like, kind of left me in a lurch. Like, it's bad for everyone. The employees, right? If the employer shocks the person and doesn't give them time or respect, they go right to Glassdoor. I think the employees are a little short-sighted. I don't think they realize about that. The world is interconnected. There's a lot of back channel referencing, and they might have created some enemies and some blockers in their career that they don't even know are there, just all because of how they left and sort of left in a poor way.
But to your point, if you can get to the why of what this individual's thinking and what's going on in their life that may put them in a position of poor performance, if you can turn them around, why wouldn't you want to keep somebody rather than hire somebody and start all over?
Yeah, and a lot of what I advocate is these earlier discussions. once something is toxic, it's toxic and it's gone. But a lot of these toxic situations are where if the root stuff had been addressed earlier on before everyone got in, you start making mistakes, I stop trusting you, and we get into a real downward spiral to it's other recoverable. If we had a real honest discussion early on, and I found out you lost your childcare and you were covering it up and not like, we can redirect it there before it becomes problematic.
Well, and one of my people have heard me say this many times. I only want to work with companies that want to work with me. If I've got a client that gets a little adversarial or just says, "Look, you're just paranoid," it's never a problem until it's a problem, Pandy. It's like, you don't need me. You really, I don't want to be here. And I think employees are the same way. If they're not happy,
they don't want to do a bad job. We've all been. Someone told me a story recently. Finally, after 4 months, made the decision to part ways with employee that he probably should have done 3 months ago. And then the person resigned 2 days before, right? They knew they were doing a bad job. They know it wasn't working out. And then we're all sort of yelling at this person being like, see, clearly, you were just, it was wishful thinking that was going to get, they knew they weren't doing a job. People don't want to do a bad job. No one wants to do a bad job.
Yeah. You reference your previous book, Elevate the Team, Elevate Your Team. Would you like to talk a little bit about that in relationship to this one? Is that the book they should read first?
Yeah. Look, I think if you have a good culture, and if you have a strong psychological safety, then these ideas are great for your company, and you don't have to do the whole program. If that's not the place you're starting from, you may want to work on some more foundational stuff.
I completely agree, and you knew exactly what I was asking for. Thank you. You travel all over the country, and you're an extremely busy person. Are there any events or anything that maybe some of our listeners can partake in?
Yeah, most of the stuff that I speak at, they're private. I have a Substack, Friday Forward, that has about 200,000 global subscribers and companies and people that listen to that. And I also have a subscription piece of that where we have kind of a club where I give those same presentations to that group, and we have office hours and stuff, and we kind of have those discussions. So if people are interested, I think probably best thing to do is go to robertglazer.com. If you click on Friday Forward in the Substack, that's also where you can get the first 3 chapters of Rethinking 2 Weeks Notice. But you'll find my podcast and other stuff. But all the speaking stuff I do is mostly private. Things I do are public are more direct and online with my audience and followers.
Well, that's all the more reason why I am absolutely ecstatic that we had you on the show today. This is absolutely. I'm telling you, this is a must read. You can get it on Audible. It's available on Kindle, correct?
Yeah, Audible, Kindle, or again, you can read a third of the book for free and decide if you like it. If you want to go to the Friday Forward Substack.
You are not going to want to put this down. It was such an easy read for me. And again, it's one of the most provocative reads or pieces of material I've read in a long time. I'm looking forward to your next one, Robert, and you have an open invitation to come back and promote that as well. Viewers, again, robertglazer.com. I encourage you all. Thank you for coming and listening to us today on The Human Resource.